Hello YouTube, Hiker Daniel here. Now let me tell you a story. Last week I had a really important exam at university, so I went to the examination hall, took the exam, and needless to say I failed the exam horribly. But there's some good news as well. Because I made a really funny joke to the professor in class after the exam, and she and the rest of the students laughed really hard, and the professor told me that if my exam had been as good as my joke, I would have passed. Now, did this really happen to me? Well, no, but it did happen to Capcom in the year 2010. You see, in the year 2010, Capcom released the blockbuster AAA game Dark Void for the PS3, Xbox 360 and PC, with that game failing quite horribly and getting very mixed review scores. But simultaneously with Dark Void's console release, Capcom launched a DSiWare game called Dark Void Zero, which was a Metroidvania style game functioning as a sort of prequel to the main Dark Void game. Now, Dark Void Zero was developed as a joke, but it got reviewed quite well and reportedly massively outsold the main Dark Void game. Quite a tragic story. Anyway, let's back up a bit. In the year 2009, the now defunct studio Airtight Games was working on a big AAA game in the Unreal Engine, Dark Void. Now, what was Dark Void? Well, think Uncharted, but with a jetpack and sci-fi elements, and a less funny Nathan Drake as the main character. When the game launched in 2010, critics mostly said that while the gameplay was decent, it could be quite repetitive and had some technical problems all around, and the story wasn't interesting enough to really captivate them. Basically the definition of a 6 or 7 out of 10 game. Now, I played some of the game and yeah, there's nothing wrong with it other than some minor bugs I encountered, but overall not a too bad game. Nothing that great either though. That reception in combination with poor marketing from Capcom kinda made the game fail really bad commercially and likely played a key part in Airtight Games becoming defunct in July of 2014. But just like most of us, Dark Void had this far cooler and more successful little sibling, Dark Void Zero. Dark Void Zero is a retro-style Metroidvania game released on DSiWare simultaneously with the main Dark Void game. The story Capcom posed to us in their marketing for this game was that this game was a really old NES era game named Dark Void, made for the original Nintendo NES, which sat rotting in the Capcom vault since 1989, as the game was supposedly cancelled back in the day due to bad financial prospects, with the Super NES launch being around the corner at that point. But one copy supposedly existed in the wild. One man had a copy of this strange unreleased game, Dark Void. As part of Capcom's marketing for this game, they said that Jimmy Fallon, yeah, that Jimmy Fallon, won a contest back in the 80s to become a character in the game and have the rights to the first ever Dark Void cartridge early. So, according to this history, Fallon received a copy, but then the game was cancelled after he received a copy, so all this time there was but one man with the right to play Dark Void, and that was Jimmy Fallon. Now, look at this image. That's the actual marketing image they provided. Nice. Apparently this image is actually Jimmy Fallon in his youth with his NES, which he allowed Capcom to have for marketing purposes, and they just photoshopped Dark Void on his TV and on his desk. Pretty fun stuff overall. Anyway, Capcom then said that they found the old NES game in their vaults and commissioned the studio Other Ocean Interactive to bring the original game to the DSi as Dark Void Zero, a prequel to the official Dark Void game. But that story, especially the Jimmy Fallon part, was obviously fake and just part of the marketing for Dark Void Zero. In reality, this game came to be when Capcom manager Seth Killian was playing an internal preview version of the big Dark Void game. That version had 8-bit music playing in some parts of the game, including the end credits. This 8-bit music had Seth Killian joking to his staff about what if there had really been an 8-bit Dark Void game back in the day. And then, after the joke, he just decided, wait, this is actually a really good idea. What if we actually do this and have the whole marketing story about the game being some sort of lost gem from the 80s found in our vaults? So, upon that, Capcom commissioned the studio Other Ocean Interactive to make an actual NES Dark Void game. Other Ocean Interactive then asked Jimmy Fallon if he wanted to be in the game and proposed the marketing story of him winning the contest, which he found hilarious and thus stepped in and provided this picture to be photoshopped of him back in the day with his NES. Again, pretty funny stuff. What Other Ocean Interactive came up with for the Dark Void Zero game was this cute little Metroidvania style game where you play in Dark Void's void, which is a parallel dimension to ours. In that dimension are the Watchers, ancient aliens which ruled over humanity back in the ancient ages, but who were banished to the void by humanity back in the day. But by the time of Dark Void, which is set a few years before World War II, some Watchers managed to escape and try to rule humanity once again by helping guys like, well, these. They were trying to manipulate humanity and bring the rest of their race out of the void and onto the Earth to once again rule over the entirety of humanity. That's basically the story. In the main Dark Void game, the main protagonist, Will, enters the void by accidentally flying through the Bermuda Triangle with his ex-girlfriend, and then with the help of other humans stuck in the void, he and his ex-girlfriend have to fight the Watchers still in the void to escape out of the void and get back to their own life. In Dark Void Zero, however, you don't play as Will, but as Rusty, the first ever human to come to the void. You see, in Rusty's time, the Watchers are already trying to escape and are trying to build portals from the void to Earth, and Earth's militaries keep sending people in to close the portals again. But many soldiers were lost trying to close the portals, because the Watchers were just too strong, so they decided to send in experts. This guy named Rusty and Nikola Tesla, the inventor, who was sent to the void to help Rusty reverse engineer Watcher technology to use against them. In the game, Rusty and his old pal Nikola Tesla end up closing the portals, leaving Rusty and Nikola stuck in the void, but having saved humanity. So next time anyone tells you Nikola Tesla is dead, no. He's just in a separate dimension. Actually, he's also in the main Dark Void game years later in the game's canon, where you're still reverse engineering the tank of the Watchers, that time to help Will and the other humans actually beat the Watchers. So, yeah, this game is really fun. It's short, but it's fun and well functioning in the style of an NES game. In the DSi and 3DS version, you even have to blow into the microphone of the device to actually quote-unquote clean the cartridge for playing. Fun stuff. Unfortunately, this is not in the iOS and PC versions, which were released later on, but those versions of the game have alternate endings, so you can actually pick your poison with this. Want more endings or want to blow on the cartridge? But actually, no, you can't pick your poison, because it seems the iOS version is delisted from the App Store, and the DSi version, which is still available on the 3DS, will soon be unavailable because Nintendo is taking the 3DS eShop offline. So after closure, only the PC version will still be available on Steam. Great. But then it won't be, since the codes Steam provides apparently don't give access to the game anymore, meaning that the 3DS version is the only version you can still legitimately buy. For a time. After the eShop closure, there's of course no way you can still get this game. Anyway, I tried the 3DS version and I recommend picking up that version before the eShop closures. It seems to be the last place you can actually get this little thing, so pick it up before it's delisted if the game sounds like a thing for you. With that being said, that's the story of Dark Void Zero. Definitely an interesting little game. It overshadowed its brother both critically and commercially. And since this was originally meant to be on the DSi only, but was ported later to other systems, I still count this as Nintendo history. And it deserved a place on the channel, so... And if you don't agree, well, it's my channel, so I don't care. If you enjoyed this video, consider returning the next time for the next Nintendo history video. I make these ones not that often, but when I find something interesting, I usually make a video. Anyway, I'd love for you to come by again. But for now, it's time for me to return standing on Pokemon routes, waiting to annoy trainers with my Geodudes. See you later.